And now let us prepare our hearts and our minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish, and take a few deep breaths. Let go of any distractions or worries that may be on your mind.
I invite you to take a deep breath. And if your feet are crossed or your arms are crossed, just gently uncross. Get your feet solid into the earth, the floor beneath you, or wherever you might be. And allow yourself to open. Open to that flow, the flow of spirit. And bring your attention to your heart space. And imagine that with every breath that you take, there is that divine spark that lives at the center of your heart. And every breath that you take is like blowing a little bit of air on the ember. With every in-breath, it gets brighter. With every out-breath, it gets brighter. This beautiful, soft glow of God's love. This warm, beautiful, beautiful place where we can relax. We can relax and know that God is at the center of us. It never leaves us. It is available to us at all times, regardless of what's going on. We are not separate from it because it lives in us, through us, as us. What a wonderful gift that we have in that. A place of peace, a place of power, a place of joy and beauty. All of the attributes of God there, available for the asking, available for the taking. And that energy of love, that energy of God waits on us. Waits on us to recognize it, to acknowledge it, to embrace it. Because it is always at the ready to give us everything that we need. We do not have to seek anything outside. What a joyful thought, what an abundant thought. To know that it is there all the time. And all we have to do to remember is breathe. So just take another deep breath. In and out. And just hold the image of that light. And I invite you to just stay in this place of openness, of joy and peace. While I lead into this next song, it's called Here to Be. Oh, when we open our hearts and cast our love across the sea, we will share our light with the rising sun, and we'll know who we've come here to be. When we open our eyes and recognize the possibilities, we will share our minds, and when day is done, we will know we've come here to be. A light for justice, a light for hope and peace like the world has never known. And love, oh love, is who we've come here to be. A light for freedom, a light for joy and healing like the world has never known. And love, oh love, is who we've come here to be. Oh love is who we've come here to be. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here this morning. And I want to thank Mary so much for inviting me to be with you all today. It is a pleasure. And love is indeed who we have come here to be. When I wrote that song several years ago, my intention was that it started out as a congregational song, as a chant. And I played with it, and I played with it, and I played with it, and I played it in services a few times, and it just didn't quite line up. And then there was one day where I actually let love, I was living my vibrant essence, and I stepped and got out of the way. And what shifted it for me was this image of the song that when we open our eyes and recognize the possibilities. And before that, it was this image that and I still have it in my brain of the sunrise shining on the Statue of Liberty, like a if you can imagine a pan shot, like a helicopter going around, or a drone now these days, circling the Statue of Liberty so that you see the sun rising in the morning. And it was this place of a mixed feeling, kind of like I see this, it's this image, this beautiful image that I have of this world that works for us all. And how we have been in this really amazing, turbulent, if you might want to say that word. I've been using that a lot lately. These turbulent times. And what I know is that as we have watched things unfold just in the last few weeks, what I see, what I know is that especially in New Thought, in Unity, in Centers for Spiritual Living, in the consciousness, whether anybody's affiliated officially with a New Thought church, but there is a consciousness that has been rising collectively, globally, for quite some time. We know and that spiritual law is that thing. It works in the background. It's the don't judge by appearances things, and it's really difficult not to. Is it not? I mean, we go into these places that just feel absolutely chaotic, and there's another surprise and another surprise and another surprise, and we're like, what now? What next? But underneath that, this is where I put my faith, in this idea that there is something absolutely greater, the good of God. God is in all of this and happening, so much happening that we cannot see yet. And yet we are seeing the evidence of it. This idea that there is only one way to be with God, there's only one way to be in the world, this pushback of it's got to be power over, and somebody has to be in charge, and it should be me, or it should be that person. No, we are all a part of that one thing, right? So living our vibrant essence, L-O-V-E, love is the word that I use for God, and I've learned that. I came up through a faith tradition that had a lot of guilt and shame involved in the relationship with God. Kind of like right out of the chute, you're already behind the 8 ball. I don't know if you can relate to that, but that's how I came up. But there was something in me, that God spirit in me, that vibrant essence in me, that kept nudging me and saying, there is more. There is more. This is sitting in church as a kid going, that what they're saying and what they're doing doesn't match. I mean, I knew that as a kid. And so fast forward many, many years to I never really officially left the church. I didn't stomp my feet and said, I'm out of here. It was a gradual awakening to another way of being. When I found Centers for Spiritual Living, I found it like much through Unity Magazine. I found it through the Science of Mind magazine. And as we know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I opened it, read it. A friend gave it to me, and I read it cover to cover. And I said, these are my people. After all these years, these are my people. I finally found the path. And it is that path of love. It is doing the work to undo the belief system that we are somehow faulty right off the bat. Love is indeed who we have come here to be. I want to share a story with you. It's called the Rabbi's Gift, and it's pretty famous. M. Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled, he had a book that this came out of, different versions, and there's many, many versions of it. It was called The Rabbi's Gift, and it goes something like this. There was a monastery a few hundred years ago that was on the decline, and with things that were happening, anti-monastic movements happening in the 17th and 18th centuries, and then the rise of secularism in the 19th century, this idea that you went off and spent your life being a monk kind of, began to diminish. And in this particular order of all the other ones, this was the only one left. And so there were 5 monks and the abbot, and that was it. That was it for this entire order. Around the abbey, there was in the deep woods, there was a little hut, and usually about once a year there was a rabbi that came from a nearby town that would come and use the little hut for a little retreat. And year after year after year, and the number of monks that were dying off, and they were all aging, those last 5 monks and the abbot. And one year the abbot said, I'm going to go see if I can talk to him and see if he has any answers for us of how we can revitalize our movement, our order. So he goes down to the hut, and he is warmly welcomed by the rabbi. He steps in. They have this great conversation, and he says, Rabbi, I really don't know what to do, and I thank you for welcoming me, and I thought maybe you might have an idea of what we can do to revitalize. And the rabbi shook his head, and he said, I am so sorry. It's the same thing in my town. Nobody comes to synagogue anymore. And so they wept for a little while, and they read sacred scripture, and they shared some time and talked about some things, and time to the parting. And the abbot said, thank you so much for welcoming me, and I, if you have any advice, I'd love to share it and take it back to to the other monks. And the rabbi said, I don't. He said, but oh, by the way, there is something that's coming through I need to tell you. He said, one of you is the Messiah. And the abbot was stunned. And he went back to the abbey, and he talked to the other monks, and they were excited. He's like, what did the rabbi say? What did he say? And he said, well, he said he couldn't help us, but he said this really interesting thing. He said, one of us is the Messiah. And they all just like, wow, what's going on here? So within the next days and the months and the weeks and so forth that went on, they began to wonder, well, is it me? Is it me? Gosh, it couldn't be me. I'm not worthy. My goodness, how could I possibly be? It must be the abbot. And they're all having these discussions privately, wondering who among them is the Messiah. And an interesting thing began to happen is that as they began to hold that idea that one among them was the Messiah, they started treating each other and themselves with great respect and great reverence and honoring and listening deeply, listening closely, and the energy began to shift around them. And this beautiful piece of property where this abbey was, there were families that had always come to picnic and to look at the gardens and so forth. And suddenly this energy started, there were people showing up and saying, well, this is such a beautiful place. I don't remember it. Maybe I came here as a kid, but wow, look at the gardens. And they started to ask the monks, can we help you tend to the gardens and spruce up the property and things like that? And then the next thing happened. And suddenly there were younger men that were coming that wanted to talk to the monks and say, what is it about this order? What is the spiritual practice here? What goes on? And eventually these younger men began to inquire, how do I become a part of this order? So long story short, that all it takes is a little piece of faith and seeing each other as love, as seeing each other as the expressions of the divine, to expand the energy, to make that place more beautiful, to make the world more beautiful, and growing in that movement, in that love. I mean, we know that love is the most attractive, most powerful energy in the universe. And so one little shift about how we see ourselves and how we look at each other, despite what's going on, that is our call, to remember that the divine is within each one of us, even when there are people that appear to be, well, not appear to be, when there are people behaving badly, really badly. That is our work, and it is difficult work sometimes. But as I said at the beginning, we have come here to be loved. That is who we have come here to be, to see it, to hold the vision, to know that there is a grand rising, a greater arising of this shift in consciousness. I don't know if you feel it or not. I felt it, that even in the midst of, how could it possibly get any worse? Like on a day-to-day basis. How could things possibly get any more divided my work has been to lean in, to say, God is in this too. God is in this too. I don't see it, but I have to believe it. And we are shifting. We are going through an evolutionary shift of global consciousness of humankind right now. I believe that. I know that. And I see it because there are so many of us that are doing our work in the background, in the unseen, of holding that space, holding the truth, holding the light, knowing, and seeing it in each other. Not going into the drama, not going into to adding to the divisiveness, any of that stuff. It's okay. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to remember that the spark of God is in me. I'm going to remember it's in somebody else. They just can't see it for themselves yet, but I'm going to hold that it's there. And that's where I direct my prayers. To a willingness to open, to see that maybe there is a different way. And I know on the surface, it's all stuff about power and greed and all of that. And I get how divisiveness works. It is profitable. It has always been very, very profitable. But that is a false prophet. Profit. Not a false prophet. Or maybe there is one. Ernest Holmes says life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. We have the permission, and I'm going to give you permission as well, if you don't already know that you have it, to show up. To show up as all of those qualities of God, of joy, of peace, of love, power, beauty, every moment of every day. And that is our work. That is our work. As best you can, when somebody cuts you off in traffic, when somebody's rude at the grocery store, when somebody just is to step back and give them space. Our human stuff wants to get our dukes up, and we want to fight, and we want to make sure that we're right, and they know it, and by golly. But this is our work. This is our practice in this teaching, is to show up as love. Give them a smile, give them a wave. Not a one-fingered wave, a friendly wave, right? And it's important that we find, especially in these times right now, it's especially important that we find time, that we make time to relax and to play. Our tendency is, well, there's so much to do and so much to do, but we don't really exactly know what we're doing. We just do to try to make things happen, to fix things. This is when we step back and we relax and we take a breath and we see how much beauty we are surrounded with, how much abundance, naturally abundance in the world. Oh my goodness. Victor Shamus is a psychologist and author. Let me grab this. And he talks about, he says, play is a sacred act. When we are playing, let me start again. Play is a sacred act. When we are playing, the essence of all creation flows freely through us. We are expressing our true nature and connecting with the very core of our existence. Nothing is more spiritual than that. We know the famous Charles Fillmore quote, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that are to be done by me today. Imagine waking up, springing up every day and saying that. What a shift in energy, how it can direct our day. One beautiful, enthusiastic, joyful sentence. To love, to live our vibrant essence means we are committed to showing up fully, authentically, who we are, unapologetically, not dukes up, but standing so firmly in the truth of who we are, knowing who we are. That's what it means to show up as love. So it cannot be argued with. And if somebody wants to argue with you, we simply back up and we say, well, you could be right. Or, that's interesting. Nothing needs to be bumped up against there. It's simply the namaste. The light in me honors the light in you, or however it is that you want to say the namaste. We have to be willing to set down the fears. We have to be willing to not get caught up in the appearances and instead do our inner work so that we know what is ours to do. To do the healing work needed, and we all got some healing to do. When we do that healing work, then we know what it is that is ours to do. I love this quote. Actually, it's one of my favorites in the world. And it is from Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. Then go out and do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And boy, oh boy, we need that right now. I'm going to leave you with one poem, a Mary Oliver poem. I love this so very much. And it's called Why I Wake Early. Right along the lines of Charles Filmer. I love this. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and crotchety best preacher that ever was. Dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness and kindness. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for allowing me to share with you. And I think I go right into a song. Is that correct? Yes. You're going to like this one, I hope. Song called Getting Up Early. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. My eyes are wide open when my feet hit the floor. Opportunities knocking on my front door. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. I got a lot of don'ts on my list of to-dos. Like don't hang around with folks who like bad news. They try to stir me up with worry and fear. I said, get your sad selves away from here. Got a lot of don'ts on my list to do. Ain't no stopping me now that I'm going. Ain't no hiding all the things that need showing. I'm bringing my best into this world. If you wanna feel the love, then I'm your girl. Ain't no stopping me now that I'm going. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. My eyes are wide open as my feet hit the floor. Opportunities knocking on my front door. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. I'm getting up early, getting down to business. Thank you all so much.